Hi, this is the Q&A that we promised. We're not going to do it live. I've written all your questions down, and I'll run through them and hopefully be able to help someone. There's a lot of people ask the same questions, so all I've done is put the first person who asked that question or a question very similar, I've put their name down, but hopefully you can relate to it as well if you've asked a similar question. And I'm always here, so if anyone needs any more advice or any more questions, just ring and ask, or send us a message. We're in the van, we're between jobs, parked next to a road because I'm using my phone, so there may be a little bit of noise. I just have to bear with us. Okay, well, let's get on with it. I've separated them into sheepdog training and pet dog training questions, so we'll start with the pet dog questions, a bit relatively easier to sort out, and then we'll move on to the sheepdog questions. So the first question, which is from Mark on Messenger: how would you get a puppy from sit to lie down? I've tried with treats and praise and forcing him down into the position, but he can't do it. Firstly, he can do it. You shouldn't be forcing him physically to do it. And that's nothing against you, that's just the dog's going to resist. All you would do is you would have your treat, get him to sit, have the treat in front of his nose, gently bring it down. As soon as he lies down or puts his front paws down next to your hand to get the treat, give him the command down or lie down. Cars, motorbikes. Give him the command down or lie down. As soon as he's in that action, give him the treat. If he doesn't do that and you're persevering, or your timing's off, another easy way to do it is to make him sit. Don't give him any other commands. Just wait till he gets frustrated. If he gets up, say sit, and he'll sit back down. And then he will get frustrated and lie down at some point. You can then give him the treat. Good boy, loads of prayers, high-pitched voice. Give him the treat, lie down, and repeat that, and eventually it will click. You just need patience. A dog naturally lies down. They can do it. It's just getting the timing right with the command and the delivery of a treat for the right behaviour. Another way to do it is, I personally don't use clickers because it's just something else to hold, but you can, it's relatively simple. You just use a mark. Like a clicker is a click sound, so when the dog, if you say sit or lie down and the dog does it, you click, and that's the dog knowing it's done something well and there's a treat coming. And that helps with your timing of delivering the treat. So you mark it, the dog knows it's done well, there's something coming, and then you can faff around in your pocket to give them the treat. Like I say, I don't use a clicker, I just use a verbal command. So I'll say yes, and that's my click sound. So if I say sit and the dog sits, I say yes, treat, give them the treat. So try that as well. Try introducing the mark, which is the word yes or shh, no, or whatever noise you want. As long as the dog associates that with getting a treat, that should be easier. And then you don't have to worry too much about your timing of the delivery of the treat, as long as you get it down to him while he's in that position. So hopefully, and no forcing him, because he'll just resent you and he will always just push back against you, and it's not good. You'll ruin the relationship. You want to try, when you're doing tricks with dogs, you want it to be positive, and that's it. The second one is from Liam on Facebook. It's lead pulling. There's loads of people asked about this. My dog has always pulled on a lead. She is 4 years old now and is a German Shepherd cross Rottweiler, so very strong. How do I fix this? She even pulls with a halter and a harness. First thing, and there's been loads of questions about halters, get rid of them, chuck them in the bin. They're horrible. for those who don't know what a halter is, it's basically a head collar for a dog. Or halter for a dog. If you see a horse halter, it's all fixed points, i.e. when you have a lead rope on, it's clipped on and it doesn't get tighter when you pull, or the horse pulls. Bit like a flat collar. It'll stay in one place and it'll just push like that. It doesn't choke. With a head collar or halter, it squeezes around the top of the nose, under the chin, and it turns the dog's head. So if the dog pulls, it goes like that. Dogs' nerves run, just like humans, run up the neck. Dogs have thousands of nerves that run up the bridge of the nose, up to the brain, down the back of the neck, into the rest of the body. A halter will damage that. Horrible. Get rid of it. A harness. I personally don't like harnesses because they encourage the dog to pull. You have it clipped on the back and you think, well, it's not pulling on its neck, it's kind of for the dog. It's not really, because you have a chest plate or thicker strap there at least, and the dog's pushing against it all the time, so it's not feeling any correction, and it's not it's not stopping it, it's encouraging it to pull into it and force itself through the pressure. Horses wear a harness when they're pulling a cart. Huskies wear a harness when they're pulling a sled. It's not a tool to use for stop pulling. If you want a harness on your dog, put a harness on your dog. We have a little harness for our pet dog in the house, just so my daughter can walk her, and it's a bit easier for her. My daughter's only 8. But we don't use that for any training or anything like that. Definitely not for lead pulling. What you want to do with lead pulling, and I'll try and do a video on every topic we've covered, you just have a normal flat collar clip lead or a slip lead. Slip leads are good as long as you get the right ones. You don't want a cotton one or sort of a rope type. You want the plastic coated type, because then it has a metal ring, and when it gets tight, and then as soon as the dog stops pulling or you release the pressure, the lead naturally slips loose. So it's like that. Correction, loose, straight away. There's no choking the dog like the old-fashioned chains or anything like that. Straight off. Simple. The dog gets a correction, the pressure's released. Oh, that's why I'm getting the correction. And all you would do is you'd walk a short distance. As soon as the dog pulls, turn, say, let's go, or come, or say its name, and just give it a little, if I get a lead, this is the lead, not very prepared. This is the lead I was talking about, slip lead. So it's nylon, but it's actually covered in plastic, so it's very, very smooth, and it has a metal ring there. So this cannot, as soon as it gets tight, you release it and it slackens off straight away. It does have a little slider which you can pull around, and that stops the ring going too far off. I don't like using these because these can slip down, so I always make sure I just pull that up right to the handle. That way the dog's never going to get choked. It's just going to get a correction and off. So that slips straight down. So all you do is you put this on, but when you use these, you don't put it where the flat collar is. You put it right behind the ears, and again we'll do a video on it, but it goes right behind the ears and sort of just under the jawline there, and it's not pulling on the esophagus. Flat collars, when you give a correction, a lot of people yank the dog, or you see them pulling like this. All it's doing is flattening the esophagus. Over time that's going to create damage. these are not choke leads, these are slip leads. These are more humane than a flat collar. They're not damaging the dog's esophagus or windpipe. They're just giving it a slight correction, a bit of pressure, boom, off. So what you do is you put this on, we'll do a video on that. You walk a few meters just until the dog pulls in front of you. Then you turn, you walk back. Come on, or let's go, or call the dog's name. You get attention from the dog. Naturally, when the dog pulls, that will give it the correction and then release. So you walk, the dog correct, turns to you and it releases. And then you walk another few meters back, the same will happen, you get it back. Then in the middle of where you've turned and where you think the dog's going to stop pulling, you just call the dog's name, get the dog to look up at you. And it's all about engagement. You need the dog to be engaged with you. It can sniff, it can sniff a lamppost, it can sniff where another dog's weed or an interesting molehill or anything like that, as long as it's not pulling you away. The dog's got to take in its environment, but you don't want to be pulled along. The dog's got to be focused on you and you're the leader. It's not an alpha role, that's a completely different issue. But the dog's got to be engaged with you. You're leading the walk, not the dog. The dog walks next to you, sort of shoulder with your hip or with your knee. You know, it can walk a little bit in front of you if you want. It doesn't have to be exactly there, as long as there is no tension from the dog and you, i.e. a tight lead. When you walk, it just wants to be like that. If the dog pulls, correction, come, and you turn the other way, instantly, pull, come, tension's off. That slips back. Job done. And that is more humane than a flat collar. We'll try and do a video on that because there has been about 30 questions about that one topic. But definitely get rid of the halty. Keep the harness if you want to hold on to the dog, if there's any issues or roads or anything like that and you just want an extra handle, that's fine, but don't use that to train it to heel. You're just going to confuse the dog. Leading on from that, the next question was from Sarah on Facebook. Which harness do you recommend to stop my dog pulling? None. Replay this and you'll find out why. Sheila on Snapchat. Dog aggression. My dog attacks other dogs on walks, and even when I pick her up, she keeps barking and biting my fingers. It's very embarrassing. I'm sure it is embarrassing. A couple of things. I'm actually working with this lady now. Once I finish lambing, I'm going to go and work with her because of the biting of her fingers and stuff. I think that needs sorting out. But that'll be either one or two things. The dog either has actual aggression towards the dog, or more likely, the dog is fearful. You know, the dog in question here, sorry, is a Yorkshire Terrier cross miniature poodle, I think, Yorkie poo or something, some mongrel. But a lovely little, tiny little fluffy dog, and then a Labrador comes up, or a German Shepherd, or Collie, or anything bigger than it. It's going to be scared if it's not interacting with this dog correctly. If you have your dog on a lead, and another dog comes booling up to it, your dog knows it's on a lead. It knows it can't really get away. It might go behind you. If it goes behind you, it's definitely just fear. If the dog's lunging out at other dogs, when the other dog's just simply walking by and ignoring it, that's possibly aggression. But in this case, it is fear. The dog's fearful of the situation. It doesn't see you as a confident leader. It doesn't see you as a role model to, you know, be comfortable and calm in any situation. So you need to work on that. The best advice is never pick your dog up. If there's another dog If it's just snapping backwards and forwards, don't pick your dog up. You know, if there's a full-on fight, that's completely different. But if the dog's just snapping at each other, or growling, or barking, or pouncing at each other, you know, let them figure it out themselves. And they will. You know, if you watch a mother with a litter of pups, as soon as they're too rough, she'll snap at them. She'll tell them. She won't bite them and draw blood or anything evil like that. She'll just tell them, and then they learn. If you pick the dog up, in this case, you're getting your fingers bit because the dog's tensed up. It's, oh no, what's happening? Get off us. That's not good for you or the dog. You're creating more fear in the dog, and less trust in you, because you're suddenly taking it up here, and it doesn't know what to do. If it's an aggressive dog and you're picking it up, it's slightly different. You're raising it up, you're making it feel like it's winning, you're making it suddenly bigger than the other dog, and that's not a good thing either. My best advice is to never pick the dog up in that situation, unless it is a full-on fight. Try and walk away, try and separate the dogs if you can. But if you pick a dog up that's fearful in this situation, even if it doesn't bite your fingers, the dog that's coming, your dog's up here getting a cuddle off you, the rest of your body is in the way of that dog and your dog, so you're going to get it off this other dog. Don't pick your dog up. Walk away if you can. If you can try and just separate the dogs, that's great, until the other owner comes. Even better if you can put a bit of distance between you or your dog, that's great. But it's all about socialisation, working on the fear that the dog has of that situation or of other dogs. And there's a lot to go into the background as well with you. You need to be calm, confident leader, basically. You need to be able to walk with your chest up high, head up high, and just walk through any situation, and that dog will feel comfortable. If you're panicking, that panic goes down the lead into the dog, and the dog picks it up before you even do. And then you're not sure, the dog's not sure, the fear gets bigger. So we'll actually do some videos on this, I think, with this dog, before, during and after, so you get an idea of how to fix it with your dog. Luckily Sheila is in my sort of area, so once I finish lamb we're going to go and work with her and the dog and hopefully get over that. Right, sheepdog questions. Lots about whistles. Claire on Facebook, whistles. Which one do you recommend to start with? It's tricky because no whistle is the same. They're all slightly different shapes, sizes, the holes in them are slightly different. Annoyingly, I forgot my whistles today. I was going to show you, but I have a one called a Montana Light, on the ISDS website, on the shop, they sell them, and a Logan, just a standard metal Logan. The Logan is slightly fatter than the Montana Light, so I use that for work because it's just quick, it's easy, it gives a nice pitch, a nice consistent sound. It's easy to find and put in your mouth and hold in between your lips, and if you're on the quad bike you've got both hands on them, you still use it. When I go trialing I use the Montana Light. You can get slightly more pitches out of it, it's a thinner whistle, it's actually a lady's whistle. I'm not confused, I just find it a lot better for trialing. You can get a lot sharper pitches with it, and a lot deeper pitches, and you can really, if you're running a brace, you can have two dogs on separate commands. So what I would recommend with you to start with is buy the cheapest one you can. Buy a plastic one. Go on the ISDS website, or eBay or Amazon or any other place that sells whistles, and buy the cheapest one you can. Buy a plastic one. They tend to be a lot fatter than the metal ones, and just practice. Just, there's plenty of videos on YouTube on how to use them, how to curl your tongue round. Do that, and practice when you're in the car on your own, so you don't annoy your wife or your husband or kids. And just keep practicing and practicing and practicing until you can make the sound consistent. So for the lie down, you need one consistent sound. It's pointless going and then next time, because you're not going to teach the dog anything. The most important thing is having a consistent sound, same as your commands, basically. So that's the main thing with whistles. Your next question: if your dog has a preferred side, do you always persist with work on them evenly, or do you accept his strengths or weaknesses and work him to his strengths? Personally, I do a lot of trialing, so if my dog's weaker on the left outrun, I'll work on that until it's as equally as good on both sides. Both dogs generally are like humans, the right-handed or left-handed. They will prefer a side. I've got dogs that prefer come by then away. I've got dogs that prefer away then come by. But it's just about fine-tuning both. If it's just a work dog and you're not bothered about trialing and things like that, then it won't matter too much. But don't ignore a dog's weakness. See it as a challenge and a point to bond with your dog and practice it and train for it. And you'll have a better dog at the end of it. I can reassure you. I personally don't like to have a dog with an obvious weakness, if that makes sense. So, if I run a dog on the right and then bring it back and run it on the left, I don't want that to be any different. I want it to be the same on both sides, or visually both the same. There is a lot more work that goes into a dog's weakness than its strength, but it is worth it, and I would recommend that you just work on its weakness. If it, let's say, prefers away rather than come by, send it away a few times, let it bring the sheep, push the sheep away, or do your outrun, call it back. Do that a few times and then work on your left and you come by. If it's tighter, then you can always stop the dog, put yourself between the dog and the sheep, and then send the dog off, face the dog, send the dog off and sort of jog out to meet it with your arm out, guiding it, come by like you did when you first started the dog on its sides. Another technique you can use is, I call it a slingshot, people probably call it something else. You have your back to the sheep, you have your dog in front of you. So again, you're in between the dog and the sheep, but your dog's really, really close up to you, and you get it excited and you run side to side, calling the dog to you. Then when it's running back towards the, say, come by, you then give it the command, and it just naturally, it's wound up, it naturally runs out wider. And you can notice a difference in that in the first few goes of it. I actually have a video of that that I've done with a customer that I'll try and get up. It's on a GoPro, not my phone, so I'll have to get my wife to help with that. But yeah, like I say, we'll do videos of all these, but definitely work on the dog's weakness. Absolutely, don't just stick with its strength, because you're just going to make the strength stronger and the weakness weaker, and you're going to end up with a dog that, I personally think every dog should have the chance to reach its its natural ability and beyond, if it will. So the more work you put into the dog, the more results you get out. It's that simple. So definitely work on it. Richard on Facebook: do you think you can overtrain your dog? So going back to the last question, no. Overall, no, you can't overtrain your dog. I've never seen a dog that's overtrained. However, I have seen a dog that's overtrained in a particular aspect of its work. So as a whole, no, you can't overtrain your dog, or overschool your dog. But you can ruin a dog by trying, let's say you give the dog a half-hour lesson or 20-minute lesson on shedding. If it's struggling with that and you're persistent with it, you're going to do more harm than good. You want to mix it up a bit. Overall, you want to be doing more of the shedding to get the dog stronger at shedding and more confident in shedding. But you don't want to just do too many lessons of shed. You want to do 3 or 4 sheds, let the sheep wander away, reward the dog with a nice outrun, let some steam off the dog, let the dog bring the sheep to you, because that is the biggest reward for a sheepdog. Give it loads of praise. Once it gets it in, maybe do a split, so you're shedding the sheep in half rather than just shedding one off. And then put them back together, let the dog do another outrun, bring the dog back, then maybe do a shed, then do some driving. Just switch it up a bit, but always go back to the point that you want to train on. But never do a lesson of just shed. Some dogs will stand that, but I wouldn't recommend it. You will ruin a dog quite easily by trying to make it better or trying to want it to be better too quickly. Every dog is different. Every dog has its own time scale of learning certain things. So yeah, don't overdo it in one particular lesson, but I don't think you can do too much training with a dog. There never comes a point where the dog is fully trained, full stop. That's it. I don't need to do any more schooling with it. International runners, national runners, supreme champions, they'll all be working on a farm somewhere, day to day. When there's a competition coming up, that handler will take the dog back to a field and do a little bit of schooling and just make sure the dog's sharpened up. A bit like a pencil, you use it, and then you sometimes just need to take it back, sharpen it up, and get it crisp, ready for the competition. And sort of see where else you need to work on with the dog. So you can't do too much training overall, but in blocks, yeah, you can do a lot of damage to a dog if you just concentrate or force it too much to do something. You need to mix it up in the lesson and keep the dog excited, and always finish the dog when it's tired but excited to go back after the sheep. Don't carry on until the dog's absolutely haggard and just wants to sit in the water trough knackered. You're just going to lose interest with it. You want to take it away when it's tired but still enthusiastic to work, and then put him or her back in the kennel and let us think about it and have a rest, and then the next day take it out, do some more, mix it up again, and just keep working away at things slowly. But throughout the dog's life, you're always going to do a little bit of training with it. You're going to bring it back and do a shed just for the sake of doing it, just to sharpen it up, keep it up there in its head. So you can't train a dog too much, but you can do too much in a small block. Mark on Facebook, shedding. Where to start, i.e. what age, and should you just shed a single in training? No, you shouldn't shed just a single, because you're never going to shed just a single every single time. If you're lambing, technically you're shedding 2 or 3. If there's a ewe and 2 lambs, or a ewe and 1 lamb, that's 2 sheep. When you go to a trial, you'll be doing a split, so you split them in half. So if there's 6 sheep, you're doing 3 and 3, or if there's 4, you'll do a 2 and a 2. If there's 3, then you take a single. The dog needs to come in where you tell it to come in, not teach the dog to count 1 sheep all the time, because then you'll get to where you have to split and the dog will come in, take 1 sheep off, and you'll have to start again and you'll run out of time. And then work point of view, there'll be times where you want to just, you're getting them into a small pen and you just want to, they're all coming together and you just want the dog to split them in half, so your pens aren't too tight. You don't want the dog coming in splitting 1 off. So practice on one. What I do is I practice on sort of 10 sheep, and I get the dog to split them in half, and then I work down in numbers. Shedding one off, in my eyes, is more difficult for the dog and the handler, to get the timing right, to get it to hold that one sheep away from its mates is a lot more difficult than keeping 5 and 5. So work down in numbers, and that way the dog's building confidence all the way until it gets to the single, and then it has the confidence to come in and hold it. When to start the dog, I can't give you an answer. I can't give you 6 months, a year, 2 years. It all depends on the dog. The dog will tell you when it's ready to do it. You know your dog better than me. I've never seen it. I can't give you an age, or in 10 lessons time start doing it. The dog will tell you when to do it, when it's ready to take the stress of it, really. Shedding can be quite stressful on a dog, especially if it lacks confidence a little bit. You're getting it you've been teaching it to keep them together all this time, and then suddenly you're asking it to come in and split them in half or take one off, and then that jumping around trying to get back to its mates, and you're asking the dog to hold it but without gripping. It is quite stressful on the dog when it's just learning. Once they get the hang of it, they'll love it. Dogs love to shed, or in my experience, all dogs love to shed. Once they get the hang of it and they know when to come in and which gap to take. But yeah, don't rush your dog into it, would be my advice. Maybe try it, on 10 sheep. If you can call your dog in on 10 sheep and split them in half, roughly, you don't have to be exactly 5 and 5, but just get the dog to come in somewhere, praise it while it's in the middle of the 2 packets, call it right back to you, lots of praise, let the sheep regroup, send it away, try again. And then you can maybe try and create a gap, ask the dog to come in at that gap rather than just somewhere, and then sort of fine tune it that way. But it's about building confidence. It's the same as taking a sheep off a wall or a fence. It's a confidence building exercise. It's not something that happens overnight. It's something that the dog needs to be pretty confident with. So don't start it too early. But again, some dogs will naturally flourish quicker than others. So you're well out of my area, I'm afraid. But I can, if you get back in touch and you want a trainer to go to, I can recommend someone in your area. I know a guy who's pretty good. I can give you his phone number and you can go for a lesson with him maybe, and get some pointers from him. He does one-to-one lessons like I do. So yeah, that's my advice. Sort of different amounts each time you shed. Make sure that the dog's coming in at the gap rather than on that one sheep all the time. But don't force the dog too early to do it. Let it have some confidence in itself and its ability before you do it. Caroline on email. How do you get your dog used to riding on a quad bike? A lot easier than people think. You see a lot of people with a lead or a chain or something attached to the rack on the bike and on the back. I hate that idea. I can't stand it, because if the dog falls off, if the dog jumps off, or if the dog just goes over a bump and falls off backwards, it's choking itself. It's not a good idea. If the dog jumps off, you want it to be able to jump and land on its 4 feet and be okay. You don't want a dog to tumble off or be choked or hang off the back of the bike or anything like that, because it's a bad experience and it's just not fair on the dog, especially if you go over a bump and it's not the dog's fault it came off. So I personally start as soon as I buy the dog, and I always buy the dogs as puppies, or I breed my own pup as a replacement, so sort of 8 weeks, 10 weeks, something like that, and I'll just go and sit on the bike. I'll not start it up, I'll just sit on the bike with the dog. I have a flat rack on the back with a rubber mat, which I recommend. I don't like seeing dogs on bikes with just the bars, because when they jump on and off they get the feet stuck under and you're asking for a broken leg. So get a decent rubber mat. I think Agri do one for about 60 quid or something like that. A cut up stable mat, a bit of carpet, anything on top of a bit of plywood on top of your rack, nice and stable, nice and safe, nice and comfortable for the dog. Sit on there. When it's a puppy, get it used to just jumping up onto the step where your foot is. It'll not be able to jump straight on at 8 weeks, obviously, and you don't want to encourage too much jumping at that young age because the bones and muscles are still developing. But lift the dog on, sit it on your knee if you need to at first. Give it some treats or give it its tea on there, and then when it's finished, lift it off, and then progress to starting the bike up. Start it up, don't rev it too much, just let it tick over nice and quietly. Get the dog used to the vibration of the bike, and then you can maybe take it for a little drive around the yard in a day or so, holding on to it on your knee, nice and slow. There's so many things with a bike. There's, the vibration, the noise, the movement, learning to balance. It's completely different, to sitting in a cage in the back of a van or a car. It's balancing on a moving object effectively. So the dog needs confidence to do that again. So you need to build the dog's confidence with the bike. When you get to the stage where the dog will stay on without you holding it, and you're just going slowly around the yard, eventually pick up your speed a little bit, but obviously you're never good doing 70 down the motorway with the dog on the back. So, just keep it sensible. Get to a gateway. When you get off, quickly turn, tell the dog to stay, open the gate, get back on, praise the dog if it stays on. If it gets off, don't open the gate, just tell the dog to get back on, stay. Don't praise the dog until you get back to the bike. If you praise the dog when it gets back on, it's going to be all happy and come back off. And then it's going to learn to come off at every gateway, which will be annoying, and especially if the dog's not fully trained yet. You're going to take it to the training field on the bike, it's going to get off at the gate and be round the sheep before you've even opened it. So just little baby steps, make sure it stays on and it doesn't come off until you tell it to, really. And then, once it's comfortable on the bike, the best advice I could give about quads or even gaiters or getting used to cars or vans or whatever, every time you put it in a van or car or on a quad bike or gaiter, take it to sheep. Don't take it to the shop and think, oh, I'm getting it used to it, because but you want to do something exciting. You want the dog to associate the bike with sheep. It hears the bike start up, it's excited, it jumps on, and it can't wait to get to the field. It doesn't want to jump off because it realises the quad's quicker than running around and having to get back on and off and off. It'll stay on the bike. You go to sheep and it's doing a fun thing. Do 10 minutes with the dog in the first field. Ask it to go back on the bike. Go to another field and do another 10 minutes. Don't go straight home and put it away, because then it'll learn that the second time it gets on the bike, it's going home, so it won't leave the sheep. Just move from field to field. If you can, let the dog off. A bit of sheep work, 5-10 minutes, whatever, 2 minutes, and just put it back on the bike, go to another field, and then it'll associate the bike with sheep and it'll love the bike. Don't tie it to the bike, please. Gary on Facebook, how do you widen a dog's outrun? I think I touched on that before. A couple of things. People can set up a false fence if you like. So if try and do this in the van, if that's your wall or your fence, that bit of paper there, you would set another one up here, so you've got a bit of an alleyway, and you'd stand here and have your sheep up here, and you send the dog through that alley. And this false fence, because it's open at either end, is keeping the dog out. That's one way of doing it. If you have a landlord or a boss, or you're just lending someone's sheep and field and you can't really set that false fence up, then I think I mentioned before the slingshot, where you get the dog wound up, left, right. When it's aiming the way you want it to do, you send it away and it naturally goes out wider. You practice that a few times and the dog will get a lot of praise when it comes back to you, and it'll learn just to stick out wide. The other technique, probably more commonly used, or more commonly that I've seen other people use, is where if you have the sheep here and the dog here, you would stand here. So you've got your back to the sheep, which is over here. You keep the dog here and you'll tell it come by, for instance, and the dog will go around and you come out to meet the dog, and that will naturally make the dog go around you. Porsche day out, I think. The dog will naturally go out with you, go out wider around you. The other thing you can do is just put subtle obstacles in the way, but things that the dog's not going to trip over. Don't put a trough there, for instance. Put like the quad bike there, or the quad in the trailer a bit further up, and then that way the dog's got to go out wide around them. Eventually you reduce that, reduce the obstacles, and then you have a dog that runs out wider. Always praise the dog when it's out wide, and use a command that says, you know, out or get out or something like that. I say keep out. So I have actually got a dog that's pretty tight on one side. More Porsches ruining my video. I've got one dog that's really tight, so we'll do this with him. As the dog's running out, when it gets about halfway, just before it starts trying to cut in, you say get out, and with a nice firm voice, the dog will go out a bit. Excuse me. The dog will go out a bit wider, and again, that's just teaching it another command: keep out, get out, out, whatever you want to use. Yeah, and just practice, just patience and practice. If you've done this a few times and then you send the dog and it just goes like what I call a firework, where it goes straight up to the field and the sheep go everywhere, just stop the dog, call it back. Don't praise it for coming back, just call it back. Let it sit for a while. Try again. Give it the out command. If that doesn't work, go back to the slingshot or go back to where you're standing between the dog and the sheep. What you tend to find is if the dog's too tight, you send it too far too early. You need to just go back a step and work on your outruns a bit closer at hand. So don't, move a bit closer to the sheep before you send the dog off, and then the dog will go a little bit wider. Then slowly increase the distance. The slingshot and standing between the dog and the sheep is a good tool, but you shouldn't just go and do that straight away. You need to set the dog up to succeed. You don't want to set the dog up to fail in anything that you do with it. You want to try and set the dog up to succeed so that you get the chance to praise it and correct it, and then it learns, a correction and praise, and it learns right from wrong. So don't go out and try and make it do a 500 outrun. Do a 100-yard outrun or a 50-yard outrun, and then 150, and then 200, and go like that. And then put these steps in. Don't just expect the dog to go round the outside of a field or a moor, on the first time you try. It sounds, from the brief conversation we had, it sounds like the dog's a good work dog, and you just need him out a bit wider for when you get to trials. Again, you're way out of my area. You're down south. I'm in North Yorkshire, so unless I'm down there, I can't give you a lesson, I'm afraid. But I do know people down there, other sheepdog trainers, trialers, who would be more than happy to help you. If you want to be put in touch with them, they will use similar techniques to me. They may use something different. All my techniques are just something that I've taught myself. I've watched videos, I've read books. And the last question is how I got started. I got started by helping out on farms. I've always had pet dogs in the house, so I've always loved dogs and taught them to sit, lie down, stay, heel, all this sort of thing. Helped out on farms when I was younger, because I'm not from a farming background. They had a dog called Bess, who, as soon as he heard the quad bike start up, it went and jumped on the bike and it came out with you, and it was fantastic. I thought it was fantastic. It got sworn at a lot off the donor for not stopping and things, but I thought it was brilliant, and it really ignited something inside of me to get a sheepdog. And it took us many years to do that, but I did buy a dog, a puppy, from working parents, and then I didn't have land or sheep or anything, so I got an allotment near the house I was living in at the time, and got some Indian runner ducks, which you see at agricultural shows and stuff. And I walked them down to a football field in the middle of the housing estate and trained my dog on them, from reading a book and watching YouTube and all the rest of it. And yeah, that's how I started. And a lot of people thought I was mad. I probably was, but you know, it's paid off. You know, I've learned a lot of mistakes. I've made a lot of mistakes. My dog's, you know, maybe he's not as good as he could have been in different hands, because he was my first dog. And I just sort of read a book and went and did it. But yeah, I've trained a lot of, I don't know, over 2,000 dogs now, you know, for other people, and a lot for myself. And I've settled into my techniques and my way of doing it. A lot of people will use the same stuff as me. A lot of people use different things. Some people might agree with everything I've said. Some people might disagree with everything I've said. You know, that's fine. Everyone has their own ways of doing it. But yeah, I hope that helps some people. If it has helped you, that's great. Leave a nice comment. If you think I'm talking absolute rubbish, leave that comment as well. It's all character building at the end of the day, you know. Any feedback is good feedback, in my opinion. And you know, I won't delete any negative comments, so we'll just answer them best we can. So yeah, I hope I didn't ramble on too much or go off track. Apologies for the traffic. I'm sat in a lay-by in the van, which isn't soundproof, on my phone, so I don't have any fancy cameras or microphones, anything like that. So yeah, thank you very much to everyone who's liked the page and been a customer or is going to be a future customer. We've got an exciting 2021 coming up. New premises, new land, new sheep, new dogs, new customers. Bigger, better times are ahead. Thank you very much for everyone who's liked my page, been on my Facebook page, been on my YouTube, been in touch with Snapchat. The YouTube page is going to get, this video will be on as well as Facebook, but I'm going to try and push the YouTube thing a little bit more. I don't want to be full-time YouTuber because I haven't got time, but you know, try and get some instructional videos on there for free. So check that out and keep up to date with that. Yeah, thank you very much for everyone who supported us, and here's to 2021. Thank you very much.